A break's been scheduled this afternoon from 2:45 to 3:15. Before we continue our business, the chair would like to recognize the Indiana delegation at microphone 2. Indiana, microphone 2.
Blair Fry, Chief Delegate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, I'm a little confused. I'm not sure what I'm being recognized for.
It was the speaker's indication that you had an introduction for Dr. Jacks or some remarks.
Okay, I can do that. I just was confused earlier when the board got up. So, I'm ready to speak to that, I guess.
Well, please proceed.
We're happy to just follow up with what the board's comments were on Dr. Jacks. And just for further information, Dr. Jacks has 25 years of experience in higher education, including the most recent 13 years at Hanover College. He has been involved in the development of the DPT program at Hanover College from its conception, and he was part of an exploratory team that evaluated approaches to feasibly provide PT education to a diverse population. Program development activities include implementation of the curriculum, mentoring new faculty, and integrating PT into the academic community. And he serves as primary faculty in anatomy and physiology, pharmacology, fitness management, and further as secondary faculty for cardiopulmonary. His research activities include interdisciplinary projects with physical therapy faculty investigating the long-term neurological implications of head trauma related to contact football and the incidence of musculoskeletal injuries in single-sport athletes. And he was nominated by the Hanover DPT students for his commitment to student success and his commitment to physical therapy. And we're happy he is a part of the Indiana program.
Thank you, Indiana.
Hello, my name is Dean Jacks. I am a professor at Hanover College. I've been at Hanover College for 10 years. And recently I've been promoted to the physical therapy program. Very happy to be there. And I'd like to thank you all for recognizing me as an honorary member to the American Physical Therapy Association. I've enjoyed the work that I've done the last few years with the physical therapy department at Hanover College. Look forward to doing more work with the physical therapy program. I think there's a lot of things that can be done in collaboration with people from other fields. Physical therapy has a tremendous amount of potential, and I look forward to doing some more work with you. And I look forward to mingling with you at the meeting. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for recognizing me.
Thank you, Dr. Jacks, for your service to the profession. The secretary will now announce the number of votes present. Can we get the mic on over, please? Okay.
Mr. Speaker, there are 432 voting delegates present, representing 51 chapters, 18 sections and academies, and the PTA Council. There are 8 votes being carried. The voting strength of the House is 440.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. There are 432 delegates present representing 151 chapters, 18 sections, academies, and the PTA Council. There are 8 votes being carried. The voting strength of the House is 440. Therefore, in the cases where a voice vote is in order, there should be no little or no basis to question the results on the number of votes being carried. The Speaker has determined that we do have a quorum present. At this time, you should all have your smart card inserted into your ARS devices. Is there any delegates who do not have a functioning device? If so, please raise your hand so that the ushers can assist you. The Speaker is going to take a minute just to update you on where we are. The plan was when we came back from lunch break to move right into our generative discussion. The chair believes that it would benefit the body to go ahead and dispense with RC5 prior to moving to our generative discussion. So our plan is to go ahead and do that. I think we're fairly close based on what was in the queue prior to the break. He hopes that he didn't jinx it by saying that. So we will, however, allow an hour for the generative discussion. We will let this proceed, and then as appropriate time, we may stop depending on where we are if we don't dispense of 5 and move to that discussion. So With that, what's in order now then is continued debate on RC 5-23. There were a couple delegates in the queue with questions prior to the break, so we'll take those. Pennsylvania 2, microphone 3, followed by Alabama 2, microphone 2. Yes? Ohio was in the queue at the break? Go ahead then, Ohio. My apologies. Ohio 1, microphone 4. And then we'll take Pennsylvania 2, microphone 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Megan Donaldson, Ohio. First, I just want to give a brief introduction of who I am. I am a fellow of the American Academy. I have also been chief delegate, and I have enjoyed periods of time on the board of AOMT, including Finance Committee, as well as being a conference chair. I share that with you because I find it to be relevant in the conversation today. I appreciate our APTA board. However, I must respectfully disagree with some of the comments said today. We do have email communication that our standards are different. I have a deep history of supporting both organizations, and it's time for the partnership to be both mutually supportive and recognizing the MOU and the relationship and the support for AOMT for the work that they have done on behalf of advancing fellowship at the international level. Isn't what's best for APTA to also support their MOU and their partnership to advance their mutual interest? Respectfully, the APTA membership growth and satisfaction should be recognized as we do work well together. AOMT and orthopedic section have a shared membership of over 49%. A history noteworthy. APTA and AOMT have had this relationship since 1992. From that work, we have created, the AOMT group has created, a description of specialty practice, advanced practice, now known as description of fellowship practice. It was shared, it was updated, and provided back to the APTA from the group of organization of AOMT. The pathway is the sticking point, and I think this is where we have to recognize international standards are different than domestic standards in the United States. At this time, we have to appreciate that international standards do not only look at a pathway of specialty being through residency or a paid certification test. We have a different process, but ABTRI did not take this into consideration. Instead, they wanted a one-path-only approach. We were stakeholders, our voices were not heard, and at the time, it was not taken into consideration how to resolve it. So a COMPTI was developed. Over $250,000 we spent in initially developing that. We run in a red budget line every single year to support these 26 programs to ensure that their members can have a pathway into fellowship. These fellows are the highest quality educators. Do we really want to restrict this by not encouraging a COMPTI to exist? I think we are better together. We have the opportunity to support that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ohio. So we have Pennsylvania 2, microphone 3 with a question, followed by Virginia 9, microphone 4 with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Misty Seidenberg, Pennsylvania delegate. I have a question, I think, for the motion maker.
Okay.
My question is in regards to that entry point into fellowship. So in 2018, when ABTRI took away the third entry point and required either board certification or completion of a residency, does ACOMP still recognize the third pathway of clinical experience? And if so, has that been defined, is my question.
Dr. Loneman, are you able to answer that question?
Thank you, Speaker. And thank you for the question, Elaine Loneman, KPTA delegate. Yes, we do have the third skills pathway upon entry. It is defined. It requires a rubric and assessment of the past experience of the individual. And we reached out to our stakeholders and opened standards and received feedback from multiple stakeholders in approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Virginia 9, microphone 4, followed by Alabama 2, microphone 2.
Good Afternoon, Mr. Speaker. You're looking great up there.
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. Excuse me, Madam
Excuse me?
Speaker. Wow.
Yes, Mr. Vice Speaker, you
The,
okay
the,
with that?
the speaker has egg on his face.
It's okay.
My apologies, Madam Speaker. Please proceed
Accepted.
with your question.
Sean Soper, Virginia. I have a question for the board regarding this motion. I understand the board's concern for recognizing an external organization as an accreditation body. I have actually two questions. The first is, if we recognize an organization, an external organization, and then that organization changes their standards in some subsequent year, have we given tacit endorsement to those changes by having recognized them and approved them? My second question is, does the board have any idea, or would you anticipate that there are any other organizations who might ask for similar recognition should this motion pass?
Board of Directors, are you able to answer the question? Microphone 2.
Susan Appling, APTA Board of Directors, and thank you, Virginia, for staying at the mic, because I wanted clarification on that first question, please.
The question was, if APTA, if we pass this motion and we recognize another accrediting body, and then that accrediting body subsequently changes their standards for accreditation, have we, in essence, endorsed in advance those changes because we have endorsed that organization as accrediting body?
So the answer is yes. We don't have input or control as an organization over what any other organization chooses to do. So this process would set us up to implicitly approve whatever changes happen down the road.
My second question was, does the board have any way to anticipate, or have you heard of any other organizations that might also line up for this similar sort of recognition down the road?
Yes, thank you for that question as well. In fact, we do see this as a potential to set a precedent for other organizations in the future. And at this meeting already, I have been approached by more than one delegate who said, if this passes, the next year we're going to bring a motion for our group to ask for the same recognition that AOMT is asking for this one. And just to be clear from, I'm probably out of order.
You are.
Thank you.
It is really fantastic for the speaker to be able to tell his board colleagues that they're out of order. Okay. Alabama 2, microphone 2 with a question, followed by Virginia 2, microphone 4 with a question.
Yes, Andrea Bowens, Chief Delegate Alabama. I have a question for the motion maker, just to help those of us who are not involved in this type of work with the manual fellowship. Can you help us please understand why certain groups would choose to go through the accreditation of 2 agencies? Is there a benefit to either the program or the graduates of the programs to have graduated from a fellowship program accredited by both groups? Or, in another way of thinking about the question, what are they not getting if they're only accredited by ACOMT and then not ABPTRFE?
Dr. Loneman?
Thank you for the question. The answer is for both either the dually accredited and the ACOMT only. The ACOMT only graduates are getting the exact same as the dually accredited. So there is no difference in terms of standards and evaluation. It's just a different pathway of entry. Some programs have chosen to do the dually accredited for several reasons. Military has to have national recognition, so they will need ABTRE. So, and there are other programs, including my own, if I may mention, University of St. Augustine, who are loyal to APTA and ABTRE and support what they do. But we just know we needed to get to step number 2 for our graduates to be reciprocally recognized internationally. Thank you.
Thank you. Virginia 2, microphone 4 with a question, followed by pediatrics, microphone 1 with an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Cameron Masumi, Virginia. This question is to the board. I was wondering if they could shed some light as to the specific reason why Abtree and CompT could not be able to figure this out on their own. It seems like the biggest complaint here was about fellowship qualification and mentorship, and it seems that we're kind of missing why that seems to be not addressed. Sorry, that was very confusing.
Thank you, Virginia. The board is conferring. Board of Directors, microphone 2.
Susan Appling, APTA Board of Directors, again. Gosh, now, just the question just flew out of my head. I think the question was about why can't we get along? So, to clarify a few
Well
things.
said, Dr. Appling.
For many years, we've gotten along fine. We have heated discussions and conversations, and we come to consensus, or we don't, but we move along together. And this motion is not about our relationship between AOMT and APTA. It's not about whether ACOMT should exist. It's not about but those things. It's not about the relationship between ACOMT and ABPT-RFE. The motion is about, should APTA recognize an external organization's accrediting body when we already have one and a process that works? That's the bottom line. We do not, to correct an earlier statement, there is not currently an MOU between the two organizations, APTA and AOMT. That sunsetted in December of 2022. We hope to continue, we want to continue to collaborate. We do a lot of work together. And while the rules say that all AOMT members have to be APTA members, it's about 86% who are, right? And, you know, membership changes. There are lots of things that are going on. But we want to collaborate. We want to work together. And we think there's a path forward where we can work together. The motion is about whether we recognize an external organization's accrediting body when we already have one.
Thank you. Pediatrics, microphone 1 with an amendment.
Mary Jane Rapport, Pediatrics.
Yes, state your point.
I don't believe my question was fully answered.
I'm sorry. Okay, please read.
So I was specifically asking why this has not been able to be resolved between the two bodies. And just for clarification, it sounded like at the end of her comments, she was stating because AOMT pulled away from the table. Is that what she was trying to clarify?
I'll let the Board of Directors clarify their comments, please.
Susan Appling, APTA Board of Directors. I'm sorry if I implied they pulled away. Let me rephrase. AOMT chose to develop a new accrediting body. AOMT and APTA still talk, still get along. We don't have a formal MOU anymore as of December 2022. That's what I was saying in terms of the relationship. And the relationship has been between AOMT and APTA, AOMT and ABPT-RFE. And to be clear, ABPT-RFE on their board had a sitting member who was an AOMT recommended member. So a member of ABPT-RFE's board was someone from AOMT. And there was a process whereby you could check off the box for both, even though the standards were different. So there's a process to do it. There's one place where we conflict, and that's the third pathway. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pediatrics, microphone 1.
Mary Jane Rapport, Pediatrics. I move to postpone indefinitely, and may I make some comment?
In just a moment. Pediatrics moves to postpone RC 5-23 indefinitely. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to postpone RC 5-23 indefinitely. What's in order now then is discussion and debate on the motion to postpone indefinitely. Pediatrics.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, it is not my personal desire to postpone motions indefinitely that have been worked on for quite a period of time and brought to this House. It's very clear to me that there is great confusion among this body. I cannot remember a time after being in this House for over a decade that there have been so many questions about a motion at this point in the process. And I think that it is time to sit back and pause and see if we can let the process and the conversations continue so that perhaps next year there will be a motion that we all understand the implications of and can then address either affirmatively or in the negative. And I think that ultimately this is a losing proposition. If we vote for this motion, people are losing. If we vote against this motion, there's losing proposition. So I would like to see us postpone indefinitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Pediatrics. We will now open a new queue for debate and discussion on the motion to postpone RC 5-23 indefinitely. Is there anyone wishing to speak on the motion to postpone RC 5-23 indefinitely? Virginia 2, microphone 4 to speak against. Oregon 2, microphone 3 to speak for.
Cameron Masumi, Virginia. I rise against this motion, specifically because of what has just been talked about. Not that I disagree with the amendment maker, or sorry, the postponement suggestion. It's here the fact that if we postpone this, we're effectively on the fence about, are we going to accept accreditation or recognize accreditation from another body? And we're also telling all of our orthopedic manual physical therapists out there, too bad, you got to deal with two different accreditation bodies. I think this is something that we really need to talk about, despite how confusing it is.
Thank you, Virginia. Oregon 2, microphone 3, followed by Cardio 2, microphone 1 with a question.
Michael Pagliuolo, Delegate, Oregon. I could not agree more. I speak in favor of the motion to postpone indefinitely. I can't agree more with my colleague from the Academy of Pediatric Physical Therapy. I can't even pronounce these acronyms. I need information to make an informed decision on this motion, and it's an important decision. This is not a weasel way out. This is an appropriate use of the, either postpone it or refer it to the board or postpone it indefinitely. It doesn't kill it. It doesn't say that we're not going to do this. It says we need more time to get information so that this body can understand it as almost as much as the experts involved so that we can make an informed decision. I'm ignorant on this, and I need a lot of help. I need information before I can make an informed decision. And I think I'm hearing that from a lot of my friends and colleagues as well. So I speak in favor of the motion to postpone indefinitely.
Thank you, Oregon. Cardio 2, microphone 1 with a request for information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Angela Campbell, cardiovascular and pulmonary. And maybe this will help a little bit too. I think part of the consternation that I'm hearing is that the report back that we had to the House on specialization is completely insufficient because it does no internal view of our profession and both the history, the development, and the future of both residency and fellowship and specialization and subspecialization. And by that in particular, I mean, one of the things that came really...
Cardio, could I ask you to please, if you have a question, get to it?
So-
Thank you.
My question is, I would like the board, or actually, I would like the board or someone from ABPTS or ABPTRFE to tell us why they made the changes in 2018, 2019 that don't allow this third pathway, that have resulted in the decimation of fellowships in critical care and in hand.
Thank you,
and in
Cardio.
neonatal. I want them to know why, I want to know why they made those changes and have not been responsive, because I know that AMP member was ignored in those meetings. They ignored a lot of that information.
The speaker would respectfully request, if you have a question, to not enter to debate, to please ask your question rather than providing extraneous information and debating the merits of the motion. The speaker makes every effort to clear up questions, and so people get moved ahead in order to ask their questions. So can the board answer the question?
Mr. Speaker, Susan Appling, Board of Directors, we are not clear about what the question actually is to the board.
I believe the question, I'll try to restate it, and then if I get it wrong, Cardio can correct me. The question is, why were the standards changed in 2017, 18, or 19 by APTA-free to remove the third pathway into fellowships? Is that the
Mr.
question?
Speaker, is the
It's
question
that
in order?
question, so it's that question about the third pathway, but it's also why the board accepted the report that did not assess the policies and procedures that have changed that caused this fracture and also some other things to happen.
Mr. Speaker, is the question in order
Well,
relative to this motion?
The first question is because it does relate to the APTA-free standards as they are different from ACOMP. I believe the second question is out of order.
So the first question is, why did they change the standards?
Yeah, yes,
Could I confer one moment, please?
you may. There's a request for information, please, while we wait. If you could ask your question.
I'm on microphone 4.
Microphone 4.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Rupal Patel, Texas Delegate. Microphone 4 here is coming off. I'm confused. I thought we were debating the merits of the amendment to postpone indefinitely. I feel like the questions are about the main motion, not about postponement. So if you could help us.
Thank you for the question, Texas. You are correct. We are in debate about the motion to postpone indefinitely. Frequently, in that debate, there is some overlap in questions related to the main motion in order to clarify and help people make decisions about the motion to postpone indefinitely, which is why the speaker is allowing the question. The parliamentarian also has informed me that it is in order to debate the merits of the main motion while you are discussing the motion to postpone indefinitely.
Heather Jennings, Board of Directors, she, her. As part of the standard review process, as any accrediting body would do, it was determined that there was not enough consistency in this third pathway method and that it could be met, for example, through continuing a 2-day continuing education course and a wide range of variability that we didn't feel met the standard and rigor that going through a fellowship program or achieving board specialization met to enter a fellowship.
Thank you. Cardio, did that answer your question? Thank you. So what's in order is continued discussion on the motion to postpone indefinitely offered by the pediatrics section. The speaker would inform you that there are 3 delegates in the queue to speak for, 5 to speak against the motion, 1 request for information, which he will take, and 17 in the queue to call, 18, 19 to call the question. So the speaker is going to move to the question as soon as we deal with this point, the request for information. And that is private practice 1, microphone 3.
Hello, Grandpa, Mr. Speaker. Mike Horsfield, APTA Private Practice. My question is, do we have a precedent where an association has granted external accreditation to other entities, and do we know any of the results of what has happened in those cases?
Thank you, private practice. Is that a question for the board?
I'm okay with either, if either party has evidence there.
Why don't we go ahead, Dr. Loneman, and then the board of directors.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I am aware of associations that have 2 sets of standards, international standards as well as their own standards. And as far as an external accreditation agency, that I cannot speak to, but I am aware that there are several. In addition, the consultant that we used is the past president of the Association for Specialized and Professional Accreditors that ABTRE is a member of, and we hope to be a member of soon. And we use the Code of Good Practice in the development of the accreditation agency, and the consultant recognized that there are multiple associations that have several accreditation standards. Thank you.
Board of directors, and then we will move to the vote on the motion to postpone indefinitely.
Susan Appling, Board of Directors. We are aware of no other organizations that recognize other accreditors and for similar things. So we don't know of anyone who recognizes more than one.
Thank you. The speaker believes you're ready for the question. There are 3 to speak for, 5 to speak against, none to make an amendment or request information, and 23 in the queue to call the question. So the question before you now is on the motion to postpone RC 5-23 indefinitely. As many are in favor of postponing RC 5-23 indefinitely, please vote yes. Or as many as opposed, vote no. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. There are 168 votes in the affirmative, 270 in the negative, and the motion to postpone indefinitely fails. So we are back to discussion of RC 5-23. We have reached the time to move into our generative discussion, so we conclude that before our break. So we will pick up with the RC 5-23 when we return from the break. So we are now going to move to our generative discussion. Before we do, the speaker would like to offer these thoughts on this discussion and its purpose, and to help you sort of move to a different space in your thinking, if you would, from this debate over the motion we just were talking about, and to think about the purpose and the reason we're doing this. If we entered into our second century as an organization and a profession, this is a perfect time and a perfect role for our representative body to look to the horizon and think about the future. As President Herr alluded to in his opening address to the House. The House officers have been encouraged by the future-focused discussions that have occurred during the Chief Delegates meetings this spring. Today is a great opportunity to hear from delegates, both new delegates and tenured delegates, and think differently about what the future of the profession looks like and how the House of Delegates is part of building that future. The Board of Directors has been having similar foresight conversations and is invested in the House having the same opportunity. These are opportunities for us to leverage the power of foresight. We are convened as 450-plus leaders in the profession, all in one place. How exciting that is. We should take full advantage of that today and tomorrow to think longer term and how we can make a more meaningful impact on our profession. Today and into the future, our profession faces challenges and opportunities on multiple fronts, both internal and external. A house focused on the future operates at its highest levels to lead the profession to achieve its vision. The question for our generative conversation today, right now, is what is the most impactful thing the House can do to ensure the success for the profession in 2030? We invite you to put yourselves in the role of thinking about what the profession will need to be successful for 2030. As the President alluded to, today's high school graduates will become physical therapists in 2030. What will we need to do now to position them for success as physical therapists? We want to hear from a broad representation today, including those who experienced their first house, those who've never been to the mic, and we also invite anyone in the gallery wishing to speak to come to a microphone and offer your thoughts on this question. For those of you attending tonight's small groups, we will build on this by transitioning to a conversation about how the House may evolve to support the profession for 2030. So, one major ground rule for the conversation, the chair respectfully asks, we want this to be a safe space and a judgment-free zone for attendees to share ideas. No ideas are bad, and all ideas are welcome. Therefore, the chair asks everyone to consider the tone and the content of their remarks through the lens of being welcoming and inclusive of all viewpoints. The post-House survey is a place to provide the feedback related to logistics for the House. For this discussion, we really would like to focus on the future of the profession and not the logistics and tactics of the House. Should comments stray in this direction, the speaker might take the opportunity to interrupt to refocus the conversation. You have a great opportunity to be part of a meaningful and impactful path forward to create a legacy that will last beyond your service. We're inviting you now to think about how we can leave the association in the House in a better place than in which we all found it. The speaker would like to now review how we're going to proceed with the discussion. If there's no objection, the rules will be suspended for this discussion to allow everyone to take part in the conversation without the formality of the parliamentary rules adopted for the session. Is there any objection to suspending the rules? Delegates and members in the gallery are welcome to take part in a conversation around one future-focused question, the one you see on the screen. What's the most impactful thing the House can do to ensure the success for the profession in 2030? Those wishing to speak will line up behind the microphones nearest to them, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. There's no need to use the ARS device to enter the speaking queue. The vice speaker will keep time to ensure that we can hear from as many individuals as possible. The chair will move and alternate between each microphone to recognize speakers. Those taking part in this evening's small group discussions will be asked to reflect on this conversation today, so please note any concepts that resonate with you. Are there any questions before we begin? Yes, go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lois Stickley, Chief Delegate, Texas. Texas has some general questions about, is this discussion going to be part of the official record of the House? I'm assuming somebody's taking notes so we know what's going on, but is it part of the official record or not?
Thank you, Texas. Okay. So the conversation will be, the transcript will be recorded, and the minutes, the official minutes will reflect that there was a generative discussion on this topic, but the full transcript doesn't get included in the minutes, but there is a transcript of this discussion.
Thank you so much for the I don't know if I'm still on.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. I think that really helps establish this as a safe place. And I also want to thank Mr. Speaker and the House officers for this opportunity for us to look into the future.
Thank you, Texas. So please, if you have comments, offer them. Please line up at the microphones, and we will proceed with our discussion. We will go with microphone 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Peggy Newman. I am serving as a delegate in the House this year, and my comment has to do with obviously continuing to explore and perfect the way that we use technology. However, at the same time, the caveat of not losing the opportunity for us to get to the point that John DeWitt made in his outgoing non-com comments about how we love each other. Because I think it's difficult to learn who we are and really get to know us as people just in the little boxes in a Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 2, then microphone 1, microphone 4. Go ahead, microphone 2.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Landre. I'm a student at Pacific University in Oregon, and one thing I really enjoy is that our delegacy created the Emerging Student Leader Award that allows for students to learn about professionalism and the House of Delegates. So over this past year, I've been able to attend the meetings, ask questions, see what's going on, so that when I graduate, if I'm interested, I have an idea of what this whole thing is about, and I really appreciate that experience, and I encourage other delegacies to do the same.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Oscar Gallardo, delegate from California. Before we proceed, I actually had a question. I wonder if you could clarify. In your preface to this discussion, you said, you asked that we please not focus on the logistics of the House in this discussion. However, the question, as I read it, the logistics of the House is really relevant to the success of our profession and what this House can accomplish in regards to meeting this goal. Can you please clarify, just to make sure that we're framing our statements appropriately?
Thank you. Yes, I think if I could clarify, the question is really focused on what the House can do, not necessarily how the House does it. I think that those questions will become later, but this is really about what should the House be doing to ensure the House, the success for the profession, not so much exactly how we do it. He hopes that helps. Microphone 4.
Jim Cumming, delegate from Wisconsin. You know, when I listened to the speech earlier by Roger Herr and also listened to our nominating committee member that is leaving, I think what I really want to make sure the House does is two things related to getting perspective from. I think one of the things that I struggle with as a member of House now for several years is really getting the perspective as much as possible from individual clinicians that are very experienced in the field itself. So getting the clinician's perspective as much as possible, which also ties into getting the patient's perspective. I think perhaps having some sort of patient representative as somebody who gives input to the House, I think would be a novel concept as well.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Kathy Cholik, delegate from Geriatrics. I want to share with you in the new book, The Power Code, More Joy, Less Ego, Maximum Impact for Women and Everyone. The authors discuss how to be more effective is to shift from the traditional power over that has been the standard for most of history to a mindset of power to. Think power to advance practice, power to address disparities in healthcare, and to build a reputation where others want to collaborate with us. If the House wants to use its power, which I believe is substantial, it should be an accomplishing our vision and an even bigger dreams. We are better than seeking to have power over APTA as an organization and power over the board of directors. So my vision for a future House of Delegates is that we are no longer charging the board to do things, but we are making decisions that set a path that they can allocate resources in accordance with their fiduciary responsibility.
Microphone 2. Thank you. Microphone 3. Microphone 2, then microphone 1.
Linda Arslanian in Massachusetts. Over the many years that I've been in this body, I think one of the most important things I can take away from it is the huge variation and depth of expertise, experience, passion, creativity, and commitment. And that passion and that commitment, it facilitates the ability to engage. And some years have been better than others. Some years have been far more productive than others. And I think the best and most impactful thing we can do as a house is figure out how we can interact with each other more often, more frequently, not just here, not just in formal debate, but in an ongoing way in our ongoing interactions with each other, and spend time to develop the motions and the directions that we want to see our profession go in. Because after all, this body is responsible for directing this profession. So I'd like to see the House sort of become a year-round thing, which we've talked about before, but to facilitate the ability for groups to get together and work on ways to advance our profession before we land on the floor here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Terry Nordstrom, California. 2 words, psychological safety. And I appreciate you framing this as looking at it from the perspective of the high school graduate who's going to be entering our profession in 2030, because those high school graduates are going to be far more diverse than the people in this room. And it doesn't matter how you define diversity, they're going to be more diverse. Yesterday we heard Adam Alter talk about going from getting unstuck. And I think that's what we're doing. We're exploring how do we get unstuck. And one of the things that he talked about the importance of is having diverse voices in the room. I'm concerned that we aren't there yet. And I think the way we get there is by creating a psychologically safe environment for anyone, regardless of how they identify, both here in this august body, at the chapter level, at the district levels, everywhere we do our business. When you look at Amy Edmondson's work on psychological safety in high-performing organizations, what it takes is trust, respect, humility, vulnerability, among other things. But if you're a member who doesn't feel that psychologically safe, you're not going to be vulnerable. It's incumbent on us who are leaders and who have had power for the longest period of time to create that space and set that example for vulnerability so that everyone feels welcome and that they belong in this space. And I think that's one of the most important things that we can do as a profession and in this house, particularly given the external environment in which we are operating.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
My name is Rick Wickstrom. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm from Ohio, and I'm a first-year delegate. And I was inspired to become a delegate after listening to the House proceedings 2 years ago and feeling that we needed to allocate more time to meaningful motions that really bring our profession forward. And in relevant issues, such as modifying the patient-client relationship to put more emphasis on disability determination before talking about diagnosis and prognosis, which is what our fellow physicians and other practitioners in primary care do.
Microphone 3.
Ooh, geez. All right. Patrick Liu, student delegate, and I want to follow along the note that John gave. I love you all. I really love the space that we're providing here at the House to actually think about what is going to happen to that high schooler who decides to become a physical therapist and then entering the profession by 2030. And with that being said, with me saying that I love you all, unfortunately, there are many students who do not feel loved. Instead, they feel hated for being someone in an underrepresented background, and they feel discriminated against and that their voices are constrained, and they're terrified of even speaking up because of the fear of getting kicked out of their programs. So I, as a student, I'm tearing up a little bit because of this, just by reading the responses that the students have sent to me, and even being up here. And fortunately for my program, I didn't experience the pains and sufferings that they have, but for them saying the responses of some of our students dropped out of the program and lost sight of the profession because they were harmed in that way, it just makes me think about our children who could potentially become physical therapists. And we say those words of harm to them, what impact does that have for not only ourselves as a profession, but also the individuals? So some recommendations that students would like to see, if possible, is potentially a student union or opportunities where PT programs can be held accountable and protect the students in the event that a professor wrongfully attacks them, disrespects them, emotionally causes them distress or harm, or using discriminatory slurs or responses privately. The other thing that they talked about is integration of financial advisors in PT programs, because many students, once they graduate, they do not quite understand the financial literacy of those components, and they do not feel supported as they're coming through in trying to enter the profession and feeling financially secure that way. The other portion is integration of a director of diversity and inclusion within PT programs to protect students who are wrongfully discriminated against by faculty members or people. And additionally, if we are able to provide a health and wellness promotion classes to teach students how to utilize motivational interviewing to try and have more of that empathy for others, that would be a great opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Microphone 2, microphone 1.
Yes. Thank you, Speaker. Mercedes, New Jersey delegate, she, her. Thank you, Patrick, for your vulnerability and the vulnerability of the students that share those stories with you. I think a impactful thing the House can do is revisit the student vote. I have so much respect for the student ushers, the volunteers, and the student leaders of today. You guys are doing an amazing job. The student that was coming up to speak, he spoke very well. He put himself out there, and I have much respect for that. So just want to give you guys a shout out.
Thank you. Microphone 2, go on, microphone 1.
Steve Forbush, Arkansas. I'm reading the message that's on the board, the question, and it's what the House can do. And what I find is that when we're representative of where we're from, the state we're from, the people we represent within that state. I come back from House every year, and I'm a little disappointed that I can't give the people things that help them in their everyday lives. I can't give them a better payment schedule. I can't give them a better logistics at work where they don't have as much bogged down with paperwork and computer program stuff. I can't give them the ability to have a better connection to their patient population. And so what can the House do? The House can start working on motions that are directed to the practitioners, the people that are actually doing the work of physical therapy within our country. What can we do to help them become better practitioners? What can we do to help them feel like they're connected to our association? What can we do to make them feel like we're responsive to their needs on an everyday basis? We spend a lot of time in this House working on social constructs, and that's great. But we're not helping that person that has the problem with overloads, overwork, too much paperwork, not enough patient care, not getting enough pay for their work. So that's the thing I'd like to see us work more on.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. R.V. Vicente, New Mexico delegate, pronouns he, him. The APTA House of Delegates has the power to enact several impactful initiatives that can ensure the long-term success of the profession by 2030. And here are some of my specific ideas. The first one is promoting interprofessional collaboration. So the House of Delegates can foster stronger relationships with other healthcare professions, promoting interprofessional collaboration and teamwork. So this collaboration can lead to integrated care models where physical therapists work closely with physicians, nurses, occupational therapists, among others. So by advocating for interprofessional education and practice, the APTA can position physical therapy as an integral component of the healthcare team. The second one is embracing technological advancement. The House of Delegates can actively support the integration of technology in physical therapy practice, from telehealth services to digital health platforms and innovative tools. Incorporating technology can improve access to care, enhance treatment outcomes, and streamline process. The third one is addressing healthcare disparities. So we can prioritize initiatives aimed at reducing healthcare disparities and promoting healthcare equity or health equity. And this can involve advocating for improved access to physical therapy services, in underserved communities, especially coming from the state New Mexico, supporting culturally competent care and addressing social determinants of health that impact patient outcomes. By taking an active role in addressing disparities, the APTA can position physical therapy as a leader in promoting health equity and inclusivity. So by focusing on these key areas, the APTA House of Delegates can shape the profession's trajectory towards success in 2030 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. The speaker has been a little lax and would just like to say he would appreciate if people would hold their applause or other comments after comments are made. Again, in the effort to be welcoming and create a safe space where people feel like they can say what they wish and speak openly and won't feel like, you know, some comments are favored over others. Thank you so much. Microphone 3.
Claire McCann, Pennsylvania, and my colleague at microphone 4 nicely queued me up when he was talking about interprofessional collaboration. I believe that for the profession to be successful in 2030, we as physical therapists need to take a close look at how we can break out of our silo and integrate ourselves fully into healthcare delivery systems. We put a lot of effort into educating the public and asking them to come over to us and find us. We've also passed many motions in the House stating what we're capable of and what we believe that we should be able to do. But I think we need to do a better job of going out and meeting the people where they are. We need to go to the places where people are already receiving their care. Once we're in those places and we are collaborating properly with other professionals, we won't have to argue for our value because those professionals and the public will see our value for themselves. For years, we've been fighting to get to where we think we should be. It's time to stop fighting and start collaborating. The House needs to take a hard look at why we remain siloed and how we can break free and truly collaborate with others to integrate into the wider healthcare world.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chris O'Neill, first-time delegate with Colorado. As a new grad, I'm sure I speak on behalf of many students and newer PTs on how we as a profession can combat unfavorable debt-to-income ratios for PTs so great clinicians do not feel compelled to leave the profession well before retirement. Thank you.
Microphone 1. Thank you.
Erin Sales, Rhode Island, she, her. I wanted to speak to this collaboration point that I feel like keeps coming up. I was able to start at the House as a special assistant to the Vice Speaker. I then went to student delegate for Rhode Island, to an alternate delegate for Rhode Island, to now being a delegate for Rhode Island. And the reason that I've continued on that track is because I enjoyed the collaboration that happened here. And I felt like I was able to learn a lot from everyone in this room, coming from the smaller state of Rhode Island, small but mighty, as Michelle Colley would like me to say, to being able to learn about all of the other components that are happening throughout the country and what is needed nationally versus what we see in our small state. So I just feel that that collaboration continues to be necessary, and I'm glad that point is being brought up a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
Cameron Masumi, Virginia. I would love to see us not only accept but embrace the fact that we're an evolving profession. I think last year we spent a lot of time talking about things like prescriptive authority, and then we just kind of deferred it. A lot of people stood up and talked and said, you know, well, hey, you're changing my identity. And they were talking about it like it was a bad thing. But I think that in healthcare practice, we have to evolve to meet the needs of our patients and the needs of society. And I want to challenge us to see what we can do to keep pushing that needle. I also would love to see us tackle one of the bigger obstacles, which is the education model. And how can we help improve that debt-to-income ratio? And how can we get more people onto academics when all you're doing is increasing their debt to get them there in the first place?
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Good afternoon, Speaker. Rob Borth, Wisconsin chapter. As I look at this question, we read this question, I think there's a lot of different directions you could go. I'd go 3. One, what can we do that's most impactful? I would say doing more things like this. So thank you for the opportunity for all of us to come to the mic and share our thoughts. I'd say two additional things. One, operationally, I think to have enhanced coordination and kind of continuity in the strategic plan and what the board does and what the staff does and what the House does, I think would help us be more in the same direction and then have better input from the House in that strategic plan. I think most importantly, though, at 30,000-foot level, comes down to payment. I mean, the one thing I think, you look at all the issues we're having as far as looking through the lens of that student that's graduating, and you look at payment and addresses, you know, one, to make sure we get the best and the brightest that are attracted to profession, so they may not, you know, go into dentistry or medicine or other things, but choose physical therapy for the great profession that it is. Two, to look at some of the issues of burnout and productivity, and I think if we have higher payment and we're able to be paid fairly and really make meaningful change in how PTs are paid. I think we're the best kept secret as far as the effectiveness in healthcare that we can have. And I think by increasing payment in a meaningful manner, again, we have less productivity demands, less burnout, and also as I listened to the Future of Summit PT on Friday, all that great technology I think is going to be limited in its ability to be implemented without the payment that allows us to really kind of stretch ourselves and do greater things for the patients we serve.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Kevin McPherson, Florida. I've been a delegate for 4 years, and this morning, President Herr mentioned 4 primary problems that we're facing as a profession. I would say over the 4 years that hasn't changed. And I would say that there has been a high probability that what we've discussed has not related to those 4 things. Or it's been postponed, it's been referred to the board anyway, or it's basically been re-agended so far back that there's no point in talking it because it's going to get compressed. So I think really looking at what we're talking about in this body is going to be important. The other thing that I would say for anybody that's read Race for Relevance, I think it's time for us to question whether this structure is the right structure for us to bring forth and help ideas and help guide the profession. It's time for us to do that because many other professional associations have moved away from this structure, yet they still have plenty of good guidance from a very similar number of members relative to the full membership ratio. So, thanks.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Tioma Loeb, a delegate from California. I think that one thing that the House can do, I'm primarily a clinician rather than an educator, even though that may be changing soon. However, I believe that more clinicians need to be involved in what we're doing as a body, and more PTs who aren't APTA members. Yes, I value that APTA membership is definitely important and it's helpful because of what we're doing for our profession. I think we're moving our profession forward. But I have so many colleagues that aren't members, they don't see the value of membership, but they have amazing ideas. Some of them want to be members and they have barriers to membership, and some of them have amazing ideas for motions. I have so many colleagues that, want, change, but they aren't involved in any way. But we need to find a way to still hear their voices and not only hear the voices of the people that only pay for APTA membership. I think that's important because there's so many PTs. I work with so many of my colleagues that they want change in our profession, but they have barriers to being involved in this methodological way. So I think one suggestion is to just double the size of the room and sponsor one of them to come along with us so that they can see what we're doing. So,
thank you. Microphone 4.
Howdy, everyone. Matt Huey, delegate, great state of Texas. One thing I like to remind everyone to keep in mind in 2030 are those working professionals who've been out 5 to 10 years. Are we doing things to support them, to allow them to work at the highest level they can, to provide for their families, that they're happy in what they do? Because those people are going to be the ones who replace us in 10, 20, 30 years and should be sitting up there at some point. And to keep in mind, we don't want to turn them away from not only the APTA, but the profession as well. And to keep in mind, when we come up with motions, they're coming forward, that we reach out to our critics, those people who do not like the APTA, who say negative things about them, and to say, please help us come up with things to help you and what can help the profession. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Hello, Caitlin Meitel Hanel from New Jersey. So I took this question a little more literal. What is the most impactful thing the House can do? And I thought, well, I'm part of the House. What can I do? And thinking of how I got here and reflecting a little bit on what Ladarius Wood said in his interview with us in the Northeast Caucus of how he got here and challenging the members of the House to remember who got you here, who mentored you to become a delegate, who put you in a position of success. To tell my story, I see my mentor, Chris Petrosino, in line over there, and without him, I wouldn't be standing here. So I'd encourage the House to reflect and potentially larger scale things, provide mentorship to have the next set of delegates be successful here as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Microphone 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chris Edmondson, Colorado. I'd like to first ask the question, why is it that physicians still get paid more on their physical therapy contracts than physical therapists do? That's a major problem we need to solve. Many of our members would like to see APTA do more to push back against the abuses of the insurance industry. We need to go on the offensive and put more money behind legislative and legal action to protect physical therapists from a financial perspective. We need to combat antiquated antitrust laws that protect insurance companies while we remain unable to effectively work together as an association to enhance pay. We need to work toward pay transparency between the payer, consumer, and the provider. Lastly, we need to continue to fight against inappropriate utilization management strategies that remove the clinician from the clinical decision-making process and lead to a moral injury of our providers. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Hello, Eric Bromazel, student from Wisconsin. I, like the student from Oregon, was brought here by the Wisconsin delegacy to learn more about the process of the House and get a better understanding of everything that goes on here. It's been really insightful, and I think it would benefit other members of the House to do that. It also prepares students and early professionals for leadership roles right out of the gate, which can lead us into a better successful image for the profession in 2023, or sorry, 2030.
Thank you. The speaker will let you know that we're about halfway through our discussion. Microphone 4.
Hi guys, Megan Donaldston from Ohio. When I look at this question, I try to think about, again, that impactfulness. And to me, I think it's time for reorganization. The reorganization would allow for us to have more time to maybe triage motions of importance, hitting the key elements that many of my colleagues have spoke to today. Priorities that are maybe meeting the agenda of the board, and using the House as partners rather than the House telling the board what to do. There's more transparency in the communication process between the House and the board. Not just reports, but reports that maybe meet the needs of what their partners are looking for. So we have a solid understanding. The logistics are detailed, but the reality is cross-collaboration within this House has been the most powerful thing I have seen over the last 9 years. I serve as a chief, and the most important thing is when a new delegate comes forward with a passionate motion, I don't want to turn them down, but does it meet the need on a broad scope? Well, we can certainly make justifications for that. However, is it the most important? I think many of us have been in the House for some time. It is the quantity of motions that are a problem. It is not necessarily that we are able to do the quality and the deep work that needs to be done. The cross-collaboration allows that time. The interdisciplinary options provide that time. So I just think that, again, looking at the reorganization
allows us to really reimagine what we could do to be most impactful.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Jessica Dunn, she, her, delegate from New Jersey. And I also took this question quite literally, as my other colleague from New Jersey did as well. And I think for me, as a delegate, something that I've really struggled with is finding information on the hub related to motions, and also how motions are, how they're used and reutilized throughout time. I think even, forgive me if it was the last House or the year before, we started debating about a motion in which we already debated that motion. And so for me, it's really about how can we reorganize our current resources to readily find information, really take that information and integrate it and really live our mission. And so for me, I really would like us to work on that. I also think in doing that, it would help us be more transparent. I find the reports very helpful, but I feel like the timing of the reports doesn't really give me, myself personally, a lot of time to digest that information and to ask questions. And I'm wondering if we considered reorganizing the timeline of when we got House reports to give the body more time to really, to like my last colleague that spoke, reflect on that information and see if the reports really answer the questions of the body. And maybe that would help us be more successful in really obtaining our mission. And I think when it comes to motion making, I find that some of the timelines that we've put in place to make the work of the House more manageable have hurt us in some ways, and have maybe not allowed the body to really get together and get consensus related to motion language, which is maybe some of the things or challenges that we're seeing play out in our last few Houses. And last but not least, I'd like more opportunities for coffee. Thank you.
So would the speaker. Microphone 2.
Thank you. Sarah Johnson, she, her, delegate from North Carolina. I love what our colleague said about mentorship. I do think we need to take it a step further. And if I picture all the high school grads from 2023, I wonder how many of them have had the opportunity to learn about physical therapy. I'm in academics. The majority of my students have had a personal experience. They're there because they were in PT or a family member was in PT. All the kids at my children's school knows about PT because I go to college and career day. But how about all the schools who don't have a parent PT who can get away from work during the day, in the middle of the day, to present? And so I think it really biases those younger future PTs. I think we would see a lot more diversity if we were in more, even K-12, we even have to get an elementary school. Let them start learning, and for the older students, start providing some pathways to a PTA or PT program.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chris Petrosino, Chief Delegate, Connecticut. I wanted to hit at strategy a bit and talk about how that could impact the House and how successful the profession would be. One is to go back to the grassroots, those who voted for us, who got us here as delegates, and strategize of how do we get their input from the ground level to get the clinicians to talk about what they see coming towards the House, but also to actually vet motions even better than we are through the technologies we have. I mean, we're talking about the hub, we're talking about possibly even a 2-year cycle of motion development, something that we can actually vet these motions so that when they come to the floor, we're better positioned to actually take a vote and move them forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Eric Fulmar, Chief Delegate, Massachusetts. To me, the most impactful thing the House can really do here is just to actually be willing to evolve. We cannot meet the needs of our future profession if we're not willing to evolve in here. And there has been resistance to evolution, and we just need to embrace that we need to evolve with the profession. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Mike Horsfield, private practice. Again, thank you. I think to Eric's comment, I would echo that and then add to the evolution, and thanks for the opportunity for this step in the evolution. I think as a leader, day one, your first job is to figure out how you work yourself out of that job. And I think all of us should approach the House. The best thing the House could do is for everyone who gets elected the first day is to figure out what problems do we need to solve? What's the one thing that would make everything else we do easier? And to focus on that so that we don't have to come back the next year. And as we go, I think it's not about having the answers. Many times we don't have the right information. The people closest to the problem usually are those that are the best to solve the problem. And I think we have to appreciate that as a House, and if the House can stay at that level of not the answers, but what are the questions we should be asking. I think that's the House's role, is to make sure that we're asking the right questions to the people that we elected, and then trust them in order to find the strategy and the answers that helps make it easier for us to take care of everyone we take care of, our coworkers and the people within our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Kurt Neely, Chief Delegate, Kentucky. When I think about me personally, what's the most impactful thing to help ensure the success in 2030 is looking at the financial implications of becoming a PT-PTA and the financial implications of being a PT-PTA. Like the delegates from Arkansas, Wisconsin, and Colorado said, if we don't seriously have discussions and look for solutions to student loan debt, to reimbursement issues, those 2023 high school graduates are not going to be graduating in 2030 with a DPT degree. They're going to be in a different field. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Albert Wong, PTA Council, Academy of Orthopedics. As we continue to hear various healthcare challenges, I feel one of the most impactful things the House can do to ensure success is to continue to bring togetherness. While we may have different titles, our path, mission, and vision are clear. As we look into the future, we must set aside our differences and reflect on what brought us to our profession. Our patients deserve the best care daily and are truly grateful to our PT team. Take a look at the countless thank you cards, Google reviews, and outcomes in your clinic or setting. When we collaborate thoughts together, include all parties, we are truly better together and can transform the human experience. Thank you.
Microphone 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amy Faria, Reference Committee, former Chief Delegate of New Hampshire. I appreciate the House officers bringing us together to have this conversation and allowing this safe space for someone on the Reference Committee who's not supposed to have an opinion at all to stand up here and express some opinion. So thank you very much for allowing this, because I've been holding it in. No, I'm just kidding.
The speaker realizes it's quite difficult for you.
Yes, thank you so much. What I really would like to say, there's so many folks who have stood up before me and said things that have been on my mind, but two things I really want to highlight. As a member of the Reference Committee, one of the things that we have experienced this year is that there are a lot of things that the association is working towards, that the delegates are asking for the association to work towards, and so there is a communication problem. What can the House do about that? The House can be more open to opportunities to communicate and seek those opportunities. So that is something that the House specifically can do. And also, we need to bring the diversity, we, the components, and we, the academies and sections, we are the ones who bring delegates. So if we want to see more diversity in this room, we need to be looking for those delegates to come along with us. We need to be mentors. We need to be open to those opportunities. We need to be willing to invest that time and that energy in bringing folks along with us. So thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Jane Baldwin, Bylaws and House Documents Committee Delegate and former Reference Committee. Amy, I feel your pain of having no opinion. You know, I think one of the most important things that we can do as a House is tackle the difficult decisions. And loving people, as we all love each other in this room, doesn't mean we agree. And I think that dissonance brings change, and it's okay to disagree with people. And especially these first couple motions where we've postponed indefinitely, I sometimes get a sense of, oh, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings to vote against it. And I think we need to be brave with each other and agree to disagree and get down to the nitty-gritty, hear each other, hear our oppositions, our opposing views, and tackle the difficult decisions and difficult problems with a decision and an action.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Doug White, Hawaii. Mr. Speaker, I think that the most important thing that we can do as a House is to meet the needs of society. If we don't meet the needs of society, we cease to exist. Society will value us based on how well we're meeting their needs. So I listened to the comments, the great comments about payment and administrative burden, creating opportunities and all that type of thing. And then it was like schizophrenia this morning. We had a motion that would address all those things. We would expand opportunities for PTs to go into new areas, different payment models. But then we kind of revert into process and egos and holding on to the past and not being willing to take a chance and take a risk and leave something, put something out there that maybe it will change and not be exactly what we thought it was, but we can always correct the course. So we need to be willing to take risks, and we need to be willing to expand what beyond our traditional boundaries are when we think of things, because that's what society is asking for us. There are millions of people that are not getting our services because we are stuck in payment and practice models that we haven't been able to move out of to meet them where they live. One last comment is, I believe we still have an opportunity to reconsider RC1 if we would like to.
You can take the guy out of Massachusetts, but you can't take Massachusetts out of the guy. And Dr. White, the speaker loves you. Microphone 1.
Bob Latz here. Thank you very much from the gallery, from Kentucky, from the Technology Special Interest Group of the Academy of Leadership and Innovation, also from the First Council. So those perspectives should share that it's going to be a little technology comments. A couple things with technology. We're talking 2030. The people graduating now will be growing up with technology, and our patients will be too. So we do have to be prepared, and I'm happy to see that coming up often. I think the second part is related to data. When we think about data, first healthcare data, the doubling of data used to be every 50 years, then it was 20 years, 10 years. It's now 73 days. The data doubles. The amount of healthcare data that's out there, we have to know how to use that data to provide care to the person in front of us. And I think we have to do some things to be ready for that for our profession in 2030. We're going to need that for payment. We're going to need it for outcomes. We're going to need it for tracking. So thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sue Griffin from Wisconsin. I'm going to use a pretty well-worn analogy, but you know, our profession is a ship, and the role of the House is to chart the course of that ship. It's not to row the boat, it's not to shovel the coal in, it's to chart the course. That's our vision. We do need to keep our hand on the tiller, and the board is a really important partner in that, so together, I mean, that tiller can vibrate a lot when we enter into turbulent waters. So the House and the board need to have that hand, that firm hand on the tiller together. So I think the most impactful thing the House can do is to engage in frequent touch points with the board so we can facilitate reflection and insightful discussion, because charting a course takes time and it takes thoughtfulness. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Cara Felter, she, her, Maryland. I think the most impactful thing we can do as a House is to be more inclusive. And while that might sound similar to what some of my colleagues have said, I want to share something specific. I teach in a DPT program and asked a student that I thought would bring unique perspectives to this room to be a student delegate. And that student unfortunately said, I don't think I would feel welcome there. And it's more unfortunate that that's not the only student I asked and heard the same or similar response. So I think we have some work to do in our inclusivity, but specifically being welcoming to each other, to new viewpoints and perspectives, and truly helping on that one-to-one basis, but also as a house as a whole to be more welcoming. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Catherine Patla from Florida. Perhaps the House can be impactful by following what the board has already started leading for 2033, and that's the value of PT. They've started to develop a fabulous program for that. So can we take elements of that program, the values, which everybody's talking about values here, develop potentially themes each year within those values, and then, going back to what Linda mentioned, I absolutely agree on, employ that within a year-round governance. That way, both the board and the House are working together in a direction to be impactful.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Jake Irwin, a delegate from Georgia. I think that we need to ask the question, what changed? When I was in high school, and certainly when I work with high school students, they commonly ask about the satisfaction rate in the profession of physical therapy. And for decades, we enjoyed a very high ranking in that regard, always in the top 3 for satisfaction in our profession, in our job. And now we have therapists leaving the profession at what seems like a record rate. So what changed? What's driving them out, and where are they leaving from? I personally believe they're leaving from outpatient orthopedics, and I believe it's related to volume. And I don't think that that's related to reimbursement. We've been saying that we need to improve reimbursement since I've been around physical therapy, which is literally my entire life. So I think it's about providing quality, but demonstrating that quality to the general public. I know that some of us provide really high quality, but as volume increases, quality goes down, and reimbursement's going to follow that. So we need to work on being more representative. Up there it says, how can the House ensure success for the profession? Well, the profession is represented mostly by far in outpatient orthopedics, but the House is represented mostly by academics. So we need to get those clinicians who are on the ground doing the work in this room. So we need to find a way to make it more inviting to them, encourage them to be able to take the time to come and be a part of this body. Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 10 minutes remaining. Microphone 4.
Thank you. Jim Smith, Acute Care.
Can we get microphone 4 light, please?
As we advance the profession, I'd like to build on what was just proposed by Dr. Patla. Our sense of power and self-efficacy is insufficient. We need to build the resources and capacity to elevate the sense of agency among PTs and PTAs so that we are effective advocates in our clinics, in our communities, and in society. The July edition of APTA magazine begins to scratch the surface on this, and the profession needs to build on that so that each PT and each PTA is an advocate, and that we're not waiting for APTA to be an advocate for us.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Oh, goodness. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Ryan Duncan, Chief Delegate, Missouri. Go Cardinals, by the way, Mr. Speaker.
The Speaker was just going to say that you get a pass for the microphone issue because you are a Cardinal fan.
Thank you. And Mr. Vice Speaker's Cubs are killing us right now. But
yeah.
Anyways, I want to make a point that might be a little bit uncomfortable, and I also read this a little bit literally, thinking about what actually can the House do. So I want to let you know that I come from the spot of, like, I love all of you as well, and I love seeing you all every year, and I've seen many of you. I've been at this since 2016, so I've seen many of you for 7 straight years, and I love seeing you every year. But what I would like to propose is that the House can actually, and this goes along with sort of increasing the diversity of the voices and bringing new people into the fold, which we've heard a lot about in this discussion, is term limits for delegates at the APTA sort of bylaw level. So not at the state, but at the bylaw level. Again, I think to go a little bit along with what my colleague from private practice said, I think it might help us to know, like, if I only have 6 years, I better get in, get something done, and get out. And perhaps we've postponed indefinitely today, probably for some good reasons, but also maybe because a lot of us know I'll be back next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that too. So maybe we can take action then. So I think maybe, again, setting up some sort of limit that says you get a finite amount of time as a chief delegate or an actual delegate, and then you're done forever, unfortunately. And I already have FOMO for next year about not being on this floor, but I'm also excited about the opportunity that somebody else might get to sit in my spot. So thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Rebecca Griffith, Chief Delegate, Colorado. I've been having a lot of conversations with people lately about the PTs in the trenches. And after looking at the demographics report, I would just assert that perhaps we are not reflective of the trench, nor have some of us been near the trench in some time. And I think that part of that informs how we make our motions, and that we're not perhaps in touch with what our PTs in the trenches actually need. I also find that the PTs in the trenches don't know who we are or what we do. I've spoken to members who've been members for almost 40 years, and they said, I had no idea that existed. So I think one thing that we need to do is we need to get to our members. We need to let them know that we are here to help them. We need to find out what the PT in the trench needs. I would also say that we don't have any idea how deep the trench is that our 2023 graduates are coming out of and going to be climbing down further into. So those are things I think that we really need to address. I also think as a body, we need to look forward with a growth mindset and less of a fixed mindset, myself included, so that we can move forward and accomplish more things for the PT in the trench. And Mr. Speaker, if you text me, I'll get you whatever coffee you need because you're one of my members. Thank you.
Thank you. Oat milk latte extra hot. Microphone 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Leonora Fernandez, California delegate. As an APTA member of 30 years, I'm aware of what APTA has been doing for the profession. But being here as a first-time delegate, I am awed at what I've learned and what I am learning. Now, here's my 2 cents. The House should charge the board to decrease membership fees to allow more PTs and PTAs to retain their membership way after the discounted rate, especially for the 2030 graduates, and to increase PR efforts, not just to the community, but to non-members, so they know what APTA is doing and they'd see the value of being a member. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tabitha Galindo, Oregon delegate. I use she, her pronouns. Something I'd like to see the House spend more time on is how can we, instead of why can't we or why won't we. And what I mean by that is supporting generative ideas in a process that includes all voices. If I can use an analogy of myself, I'm here speaking right now and you're listening to me, even though my colleague Ben in microphone 3 line has been standing in line about 10 minutes longer than me. And so some of us have the privilege to have our voices supported, and we are fast-tracked to our ideas being heard in a developmentally supported way. However, there are a number of generative ideas out there that are phenomenal, but those individuals don't have the same support in developing that concept into a full, successful fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Caroline Gwaltney, Chief Delegate, Michigan. There have been so many wonderful suggestions regarding areas we can improve. Member engagement and collaboration are essential to moving this profession forward. This body is one way we foster that engagement. I feel energized after each House cycle as I play a small role in representing all members as we collaborate in this House. That's a substantial task that requires significant time. I agree we need more time to do the work we do, which is to set the compass to guide the direction of our profession. Lately, I feel we are working without a reliable compass. And to our colleague from Wisconsin's point, we can't steer the ship without a compass. Respectfully, we need more time for collaboration and debate. Is that best done on the hub? I don't know, but we need some method of connection across components. I miss that. The hub used to be a cost-effective and respectful place to have this collaboration and debate so we could efficiently do the work on the floor here at the House. I wonder if we've been witnessing the effects of waiting to debate on the floor over the last 2 years. I miss collaboration and the learning that occurs on the hub, but I also think the opportunity to have open conversations helps us all to identify the most important issues facing our profession. We need to focus, and to do that, we are better together.
Thank you. We're going to have time for 3 more comments, which will end us at microphone 4. So those at microphone 3, I'm sorry, you may sit down. And then the speaker will indicate how you can submit comments if you have them after this discussion ends. So microphone 2.
My name is Caitlin Downey. I'm a first-time delegate for Colorado, and I've been a physical therapist for 1.5 years. I believe the most impactful thing the House could do is to save our graduates from burnout. I believe improving reimbursement rates, increasing opportunities for residencies, and greater mentorship will help with that. Additionally, I think having more opportunities to speak to national board members will help to inspire new physical therapists to have a voice and be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Hello, Angela Campbell, cardiovascular and pulmonary. I thank everyone for your comments and suggestions and the time to do this. I realize that I come wearing many hats and a history of wearing many hats. And I think one of the things that would be most helpful for this House is the idea of information and information management to allow more successful collaboration. For example, more active, structured, and formalized motion formation that requires both collaboration and input from both the board and the staff level of the organization so that we're not doing things that are duplicative or that are already in process. I think also by adding the chief delegates back to component leadership meetings would also be helpful because I realize our chief delegates are not getting many of the reports and information that us as component presidents do get. By providing delegates that feed forward reports like the value of PT that no one has had access to unless you're a component leadership meeting. The workforce that was just presented yesterday is another example. And then lastly, one of the things that's also in motion this year is that idea of dashboard. So one of the things we talked about in cardiovascular and pulmonary, for example, was I was like, okay, Damar Hamlin this last year, is there something about AED? Because I thought, because I was not in the House then, that the AED motion did not pass several years ago. And then had to go back and find out that it indeed did pass. But we don't really have a place to have public position statements that are well accessible to the public, to non-members, or even to members to really know what we've done as a House. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 4.
Thank
Last
you.
comment.
Thank you, Speaker of the House. No pressure here. Miles Kiben, Texas delegate. I bravely ask the House of Delegates to join and be courageous in moving generative discussions that lead to actual actionable items that address the needs of the stakeholders, our students, our clinicians, our profession. We need to know who the PT of 2023 looks like, and they're not going to be like us. And that means, as higher ed is going through a great upheaval, so must we. So I think we should go ahead and be brave and do an upheaval within the House of Delegates so that we can be AI informed. A lot of the communication that we're doing right now in the organization and structure of how we're discussing things can be addressed by using AI or technology. Many of the items that we talked about that are impactful include reimbursement, documentation that doesn't kill the clinician, debt ratio, compensation, and the value of physical therapy. I envision a House of Delegates that is efficient and will discuss things that are scary, that will make us move forward so that we address the 2030 physical therapists. Thank you.
Thank you. State your point.
Mr. Speaker, Rupal Patel, Texas delegate. So my lovely colleague from Colorado had to ask you for your order to thank you and to show that Texas loves you, and especially this delegate. I got for you your favorite dark chocolate with a touch of sea salt.
Wow.
Thank you for the discussion and this brave space.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and I would like to just say that the speaker appreciates all of you and the willingness to have this discussion. Yes? State your point.
Cheryl Resnick, California. We've just spent a significant amount of time talking about things, and I'd like to know what the plan is going forward to take this information and make it usable.
So thank you. This is a beginning of the discussion, and we will continue the conversation this evening at 5:30 in the small groups, and then we will be, the House officers along with staff will be taking that information, and we will use it to develop some follow-up with the information. We have 3 chief delegates meetings scheduled for the fall, and we'll be engaging the chief delegates, and they'll be sharing that information. And then as we get more input and coalesce around some ideas, then we will make some decisions about how the House may be able to change or operate differently, or look at those things and make some decisions where we can, and where we need to bring decisions to the House, we'll do that. So the conversation will continue tonight, and then in the chief delegates meetings in the fall, and we'll have some updates following that. Thank you. So prior to, we are at the time for our break, and so tomorrow, tonight, we're going to have the small group discussions, and then we're going to continue tomorrow with a report out of those discussions, and then a time again for, some time for people to further reflect and comment on what came out of the small groups tonight. So it's now time for our afternoon break. We do have some announcements before we move. The chair would like to recognize the second member of the nominating committee who will be retiring from the committee, serving this last year as chair, Dr. Lisselle Pilgrim. As chair, her ability to build trust in the team, lead with clear foresight, focus, and vulnerability, and pose thought-provoking questions to challenge assumptions is a testament to her strong leadership. One of her nominating committee colleagues describes Lisselle as having the spirit of a warrior with a compassionate heart. She embraces her diverse background and brings a story that resonates with grit and determination. As some of you may know, Dr. Pilgrim is unable to be here with us in person because she is a new mother, but the chair believes she may be watching on the live stream. Please turn your attention to the screens for a message from the committee's outgoing chair.
Good afternoon, House. Ironically, 3 years ago, when I was elected to the nominating committee, it was through a bubble on the screen, much like today, although for very different reasons. 3 years ago, we were in the height of the pandemic, surrounded by loss of life. And this year, I'm in the height of newborn life. 3 years ago, I introduced the House to the Trinidadian dish of callaloo. I discussed how it was composed of ingredients that individually were great, but together combined to create an extremely flavorful, albeit not typical, dish. As I leave the nominating committee, I hope to inspire the House through a little expansion of the elements of this dish based on all the things I've learned in the last 3 years. One of the ingredients in callaloo is salted butter. Once in the pot, it melts, and you'll never see it. But if it's missing, you'll definitely notice the missing flavor. When we look at our member numbers, there are areas such as early professionals that we continually see a drop in membership. And this is sometimes regardless of how involved they were as students. I don't claim to have the answer, but I notice the loss of flavor when they aren't represented. The future of our profession, the ones who will lead us into the next century, is missing. I challenge you to think of how you can encourage them and other groups to stay or begin being involved so that we really do set up our profession to be relevant to the future. Callaloo is a side dish served with many main dishes like rice or macaroni pie, to name a few. Like callaloo, how can we as an association and house create an environment that we can be served with many different dishes? There are many areas in which we can improve our compatibility. However, the challenge is to be open to transition that allows the new to join us and feel welcome. I challenge you to welcome the new and individual ingredients that can add flavor. I challenge you to invite the new or the "it's been a while" to join us and help us to achieve the goals of our strategic plan. We each have a part to play, and I challenge you to find your role as I will be finding mine. Thank you all for allowing me to serve this association and the House for the past 3 years. It has undoubtedly been one of the most gratifying times of my professional journey. Thank you to my fellow nominating committee members, both past and present, for the support and hard work. You have inspired me, challenged me, and ultimately helped me to grow. I leave so proud of all the work we've done to improve our processes over the past years, and I know you will continue to grow as I leave you. A special thank you to the tribe. You have built me up, sustained me, and encouraged me, sometimes when I didn't even know I needed it. Thank you. Thank you to the House officers for allowing me to say goodbye to you all in this manner, and I hope to see you all in a year with a little extra joy in my life.
Lucille, on behalf of APTA, thank you for your service. We're grateful for all that you've contributed to the work of the nominating committee. It's now time for our scheduled break. We're in recess until 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. For those watching the live stream, the broadcast will resume after the break.